subscribe, hit that notification button. Don't forget to share this video with your fellow veterans. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dwayne Kimball, United States Army veteran and retired VA rating specialist. Welcome to my monthly Q&A session, but I got a surprise for you today. I'm here with Dr. Freeman. Dr. Freeman, how are we doing this evening?
Doing fine, Dwayne. I'm excited to be here. Thank you very much for the invite.
And I'm glad to have you. I know we did a part one, a part two, and we were talking about DBQs, Nexus statements, and some other information. And you agreed to come back to take some questions this evening from my subscribers. So I am super excited. But before we get started, Dr. Freeman, can you tell everyone a little bit about you, give a little bit about your background, your military background, what it is you do currently, and your contact information?
Very good, Dwayne. Yes, I've come from a family of veterans. My father was in the Navy. I was a Fleet Marine Force corpsman in the military, as well as my son was a Navy SEAL. We've all retired and are now veterans, and we have a heart for veterans. And so I came on board to try and help veterans get the benefits we believe that they deserve. I think if you serve, you deserve. And so from a medical background of preventive and occupational medicine, I've made a career out of doing disability medical evaluations. Well, now I've curtailed that skill set to try and specifically help veterans do disability medical evaluations for their benefits. And so I'm coming in from a veteran helping veterans perspective.
So also, Dr. Freeman, can you give your contact information, phone number, if that's after tonight, if someone wants to try and book an appointment with you or get a hold of you by phone or email?
Yes, sir. Well, the biggest and the best way to get me is through my website. It's AXX as in X-ray, ESS as in Sierra, MED as in medical.com. That's accessmed.com. And my office number is area code 337-484-1178. Again, 337-484-1178. But a good way to communicate with my office is through info at accessmed.com.
Okay, fine. That's perfect. That way, if anybody wants to contact you, they can get a hold of you. Go ahead, Dr. Freeman. I'm sorry. Finish what you were saying.
No, there you go. Okay, so you had frozen up, and so I was saying until which time you came back. I'm just telling the audience that I'm grateful to be here today as your guest, and I appreciate everybody's attendance and their questions. I hope that we can answer a lot of their questions. Thank you, Dwayne.
Okay, I appreciate it. So we're gonna go ahead and jump in it, Dr. Freeman. Some of these may be for you, and some may be for me. And like we said in the description or in the thumbnail, that Dr. Freeman will be taking some questions. So I'm trying to scroll through some of these and see which ones are for him and then some for me. Okay, so I'll pop it up on the screen here, Dr. Freeman. This one is, if a migraine claim has two causes, TMD, I'm assuming that's TMJ, and tinnitus, is the proper way to file to pick only one, or do you state it's secondary to both? Well, you got to understand, McFly, it's 5 ways of service connection. So you got to ask yourself, under the 5 ways of service connection, which way are you claiming migraines? Okay, if you're claiming it secondary to, I'm assuming as you said TMD, I want to say that could be TMJ and tinnitus. You can claim it secondary to both of those at the same time if you want. There's nothing, in the 38 CFR that says that you can't. But Dr. Freeman, real quick, do you see a lot of veterans or, claiming migraine secondary, let's say to tinnitus. Have you seen that when you were doing work for the third-party CMP exam officers, like you stated in the other interview that we did?
I did, Dwayne, and I still do. I think tinnitus is a big problem, especially coming from the point of view that I have it as well. So I understand from where these veterans are coming, and because I've had tinnitus, I see that it can cause headaches, and it can cause sleep disturbances, and it can cause multiple problems. And I would agree that migraine secondary to another physical, neuropsychological and physical problem is sufficient. And to answer McFly's question, I would say absolutely, I would do it to both, because you want to lend as much evidence with credible medical evidence towards your claim. I agree with you, Dwayne.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that, Dr. Freeman. We'll keep it going. We got a two-part question here. Joe C. says, filed in September, several secondary claims were deferred twice for further development. Those exams were done in October. DBQs has negative for Nexus for direct service connection, but examiner didn't opine on secondary connection at all. Should the RVSR request new exam or additional medical opinions submitted at 4130 explaining this concern? If denied, grounds for HLR. It's up to you. You have to figure out how you want to file that claim. And for example, I've seen veterans where they've claimed, let's say they were treated in service for migraines. They've claimed migraines direct service connection, and then on the same claim form, they'll say I'm claiming migraine secondary to tinnitus. Now, at that point, the RVSR should request 2 CMP exams on that 2507 medical request. Okay. Now, as it pertains to grounds of a high-level review, a lot of veterans say, "Oh, I got denied. I wore the uniform. I should be service connected just based on that alone." That's not the way it works. When you do a high-level review, you have to argue fact or law. So how can you do a high-level review to argue fact or law if you do not have a copy of your claims folder? And if you do, you have to go through your claims folder to find that fact or law that was violated to be successful on a high-level review. Okay, so we're going to keep going. During HLR for mental health claim, a DTA error was found. Was scheduled for CMP ACE exam. I hate those ACE exams, for which was not required to attend. Is this just a DTA error or CUE? More information is going to be needed for that, Michael, because I don't know what the DTA error is. Okay, but Dr. Freeman,
Yes,
when
sir.
you work for the third-party contractors, what did you do a lot of ACE exams or any at all?
I was asked on rare occasion to do those ACE exams on rare occasion, but I didn't do many of them. You know, the ACE means acceptable clinical evidence.
Yep.
And, you know, if they had substantial, credible medical evidence and lay evidence, I would think that the rater or would have enough information and data to make a decision. And I guess only if they needed a secondary medical opinion would they request an ACE exam.
Yeah.
So I was asked on few occasions, but I didn't do it often, Dwayne.
Yeah. I never liked ACE exams because, you know, for example, we'll just use migraines again. If the veteran is coming in for an increase, that information is pretty much subjective of how many, you know, if it affects their employment. It's just a question to the vet.
Right.
And I think some CMP examiners, you know, rely on VA medical records where a lot of veterans don't get treatment. So at the VA, so there's no medical records there. And for ACE exam, how would you know, or any examiner know, to check that box that the migraines interfere with employment if they don't pick up the phone and call the vet or
Right.
bring them in for an exam? You
Right.
know, so that's one of the reasons when I rate it, I'm not going to say never, but I cannot recall out of all the 2507 medical requests that I submitted asking the examiner to do in ACE exam. I felt it was a disservice to the vet, you know.
And
But
I agree
some,
with you, Dwayne.
yeah, some examiners,
Some of those conditions are subjective, so much so that it's not found in the medical records because a lot of the veterans were taught to push through. And now we're coming to fruition. Well, because I'm having a headache, we don't know by the records whether it's documented that it's pulsating or throbbing, or whether it's constant, or whether it's unilateral or bilateral, or whether or not it causes prostrating conditions, and whether or not you had to leave work. You can't find all that information in a service treatment record, or sometimes in the claims folder. You need
right,
to interview the veteran.
right, most definitely, I agree. So everyone out there, let's make sure we get these likes up, and also throw some questions. We want some questions for Dr. Freeman as it pertains to the DBQs and the Nexus statements. And when I froze, I don't know if you explain the background like you did in part 1 and part 2 of our videos, Dr. Freeman, about your experience with the third-party contractors, LHI VS services.
No, I didn't. But I was at one time a contract healthcare provider for all the third parties, the QTCs, LHIs, and VES, and LHI has now subsequently become Optum, I think. Yes, and so in doing so, I just didn't see the fairness. Being a veteran myself, I felt like the third-party administrators got paid on quantity and not necessarily quality, and they weren't so understanding about or worried about outcomes. And so, being a veteran and trying to help other veterans, I was more outcomes oriented, and I had a passion to help veterans. And so I believe in quality over quantity. So I actually went independent, and I think that we're doing more good for veterans now than when I was working with the third-party administrator.
Right. And I'm glad you shared that because in that's what I'm telling my subscribers, we have somebody here tonight that has worked in those organizations that they're going to be going seeing examiners for. So now is the time to ask these questions. You know, we have a medical doctor here that's doing DBQs now, and this is all I hear in my comments. The next question I'm about to pop up is a subscriber, veterans talking about their DBQ. You got somebody here. Let's get these questions here for Dr. Freeman. HLR sitting untouched since day one. It's been 3.5 months. All they say at the 1,000 line is it is in national work queue, but won't give any info past that. I did a video. Veterans, stop calling 800-827-1000 and asking for a detailed update. Those individuals are not raiders. They cannot sit. They got a certain time. They got to get you off that phone. They can't sit on that phone for 30 minutes and go through your claim. So in that video that I did about this 800 number, I talked about, they're going to tell you being worked in the order received. That 800 number, veterans call, and they're like trying to get all this information. That does not work. Okay. Anything I could be doing to maybe get moving or at least some answers. I'm going to do a video. It's going to go up next Monday. And it's concerning an informal conference and how you can get that pushed up. Okay. So twist it. Make sure you subscribe my video so you can get notified on that video for Monday. Okay. DBQ, my doctor does not feel I fit the severity of symptoms. Call Dr. Freeman. Talk through that. There you go. Talk through that. Got the doctor right here. Call Dr. Freeman.
There you go.
All right. Chris, welcome back, Chris. Can the examiner perform the DBQ see the veterans' ratings, both cumulative and for each individual condition? You know, I'm going to let you answer this, Dr. Freeman. When you work for LHI and those other services, could you see the veterans claims file? Did you get access? Did the VA give you access to that information?
We did have access to the electronic claims file, and we could ask and search for different things, and we could get access to what their individual ratings were, as well as their cumulative rating. And as an independent examiner now, I get the C file as well, and we sit down and interview with the veteran either in-house or virtually, and we'll know each individual service connection as well as their cumulative total disability rating. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. So there you go, Chris. You got it from the subject matter expert himself. Okay, PTSD migraine claims with actionable and sufficient DBQs, Nexus letters submitted to VA, in turn VA requested TBI. Is this typical for VA to request exam you didn't file for? It sounds like it's a mistake. Make sure that you're not service connected for TBI, because if you're service connected for TBI and migraines, they have to request the exam for both, because on the mental health, it asks is if the occupational impairment is related to the TBI or the mental condition.
Right.
Okay. So if you are service connected for TBI already, Mr. Rivers, then yes, they are. That is correct. They will be requesting both. Mr. B, 2002, claim denied, July 2002, October granted, never notified or rated. 2023 supplemental to claim they granted again in 2003. Should this be backdated as an error given the rate claim 2023? I'm going to need more information, Mr. B, on that. Effective dates, veterans are very tricky. I get a lot of questions about effective dates, and I am very reluctant to give answers without looking at any evidence. That's like me asking Dr. Freeman, hey, Dr. Freeman, my elbow hurts. Do you think it's broke? and he has no x-ray, no MRI, no nothing, not even me saying I got full range of motion or whatever. So when it comes to effective dates, everyone, I need to be looking at information, because it could be Mr. B and then it could not be, but it's going to determine what's in the file and what's transpired between 2002 and 2023. Oh, yeah, some more. The claim was originally denied within 1 year after discharge from service. The now was that it never happened during service. Disease was on list. Private Nexus letter stated it happened during service and rated it 100. He quoted my military records, which is what they should do. But again, we're talking 21 years there. So if nothing happened in those 21 years, you lost appeal rights after the first year. Okay. So Dr. Freeman, when you were doing DBQs, Nexus statements for third parties, and even now, how important is it when a veteran comes to you and they says, hey, Dr. Freeman, I need a DBQ completed for a back condition I had in service, and here are my medical records from active duty? How important is it for you to provide a positive opinion when you have those medical records from active duty, showing complaints, treatment, or even a diagnosis?
Well, Dwayne, I mean, you know as well as I do, if you have a injury, illness, or event that occurred while you were actively serving and it's documented in your service treatment records, that's pretty much gold. If you have a current disability that can be related to that injury, that's pretty much gold. And the nexus is the connection of the two, and stating that due to this injury, I've developed this condition, and now it's become degenerative over time. And I can show via medical evidence of diagnostic criteria, let's say x-rays and radiology report, that I have degenerative arthritis, and this is in the same location as was documented in my service treatment record. You got the three pillars of success right there. You've got the current diagnosis or disability or symptomatology that meets the criteria for this disability or this diagnosis. You have the injury, illness, or event that occurred while you were actively serving, and you have the connection between the two, which is called, and it's important to have continuity of care. You were seen periodically from the time you were discharged to this current day, with documents showing that you've had visits to the chiropractor, to the ortho, to the back doctor, to the get x-rays and MRIs, that's continuity of care. People forget about that. It's important to say that we've had continual attention to this condition. Hence, your injury, illness, or event, your current disability, and the continuity of care between is the three legs of the stool. You'll be able to sit on that stool with those three legs.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So we're going to keep going here. Twist has a question. How long after CMP exam is sent back to the VA should they rate the claim? There's no set time frame. It could be a week. It could be 2 months. There's no set time frame. It does go to the national work queue. And once it gets pulled, I believe by a management analyst, I know it used to be management analyst at VBA or the regional office, and then they'll sign it down to a particular team. Here we go. Troy says, looking forward to this live stream. I met with Dr. Freeman for the first time yesterday, and he and his staff were great. He was very knowledgeable of the VA claims process and truly cares about veterans. Yes, I like that. I like that. Thanks for sharing, Troy.
Thank you, Troy.
And again, we got Dr. Freeman here, and Dr. Freeman, you and I had questions offline, and I'm gonna tell you, I haven't met many doctors like yourself that does DBQs and Nexus statements, but more so the knowledge that you have around DBQs and Nexus statements, what is needed, and actually, having that experience. So, I encourage people, now is the time to ask questions, because they ask questions to me all the time. Well, what about that? And I'm like, I'm not a medical doctor.
Yeah. Thank you.
I can't tell you, So one, a good, thanks from me. I'm pretty sure a lot of my subscribers for doing what you're doing, because when I was going through this process as a VA employee, I went to, I think my insurance was a Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I went to bluecrossblueshield.com, and I just started looking for doctors. I called my doctors, a couple of doctors that I was using, to ask to complete DBQs. And then I need a couple of other doctors. And I just started scrolling down, and I found even my doctors, no one, well, they wouldn't have known because DBQs were new at that time. So I was trying to find somebody within the same month when the DBQs went live, but now, they've probably been out, 10, 11 years already. So a lot of private doctors like yourself, not a lot, but there are a few doctors out there like yourself that are not only familiar with them, but have had some training and years of experience completing them. And I think that's definitely a plus to the veteran.
That's actually, Dwayne, I feel blessed as far as I've gotten the requisite education and training that comes from working with those third-party administrators. You got to give it to them. They trained us well, and they'll train you as what is necessary as far as the verbiage and the data needed for adjudication, as opposed to in the civilian world, those doctors are mainly worried about treatment. We don't necessarily treat, we just document subjective and objective findings and put pieces of the puzzle together to show the picture of disability.
Right. See, okay, so we want to keep going. So Troy says here, and it really helped me see a clear path forward. That's Troy again. And McFly says, take it away, Doc. All right. Question, if CMP says less likely, my own IMO states more likely, according to CFR 38, my IMO should win out, correct? Which 38 CFR? That's the question. Also, you just said IMO. Where's your DBQ? You need a DBQ with that independent medical opinion. Also, you have to make sure it is actionable and sufficient. This is something that Dr. Freeman and myself was just talking about before we went live. And I was talking about a 38 CFR, particularly 38 CFR 3.326, subpart B and subpart C. but that only applies if your DBQ and IMO Nexus statement is actionable and sufficient. Now, I've seen them where they were, and the VA is still scheduling some exams. Dr. Freeman and I, we were talking about that as well. At that point in time, you have to make a decision if you want to go to that exam or not. They did me like that as a raider, and I told them to go kick rocks. And they said, oh, well, you can't do that. I'm like, I was trained by the VA, so what you're telling me is incorrect. If I don't show up for that exam, you don't get paid. So I'm not going to show up because I don't know your doctor, I don't trust your doctor, and the 38 CFR states that if I do X, Y, and Z, no further exam is needed. And that's what it talks about in that particular 38 CFR.
That's right.
Okay, he says, I agree, great team. All right. I was trying to make sure everybody heard us there. Thanks, Stephen. Chris says 86 viewers and only 20 likes. Come on, we got 140 people in here. Show Dr. Freeman some love now. Let's get these likes up. Submitted a DBQ and IMO from a private provider that I paid for, but I still got denied. Reason was no service connection. Should I get another DBQ IMO elsewhere? I paid for it for a reason. Okay. So Dr. Freeman had talked about this earlier when I asked him how important it is to look at medical records, right? Especially, medical records from active duty, especially if you're claiming something due to service. Just because you paid for a DBQ and Nexus statement and it was a positive opinion does not mean it's automatic. It's still other criteria as it pertains to the 5 ways of service connection. That's what you have to figure out first. Whatever you're claiming, where does it fall under the 5 ways of service connection in RV? That's where you have to push forward. Okay. You just can't say, oh, I fell off a truck in service and hurt my back, and there's no record of it. Okay. For direct service connection, you need 3 elements: current diagnosis, a link, meaning some type of documentation and service, and a nexus. Okay. So yeah, he put TMD equals say, okay. Normally in the rating schedule, it is TMJ, but McFly, I kind of figured that's what you meant. Twisted got a lot of questions tonight. Where in the M21 does it talk about OSA breathing assistant devices? If you know offhand, and also does the DBQ outline other devices or just CPAP? I'm going to let Dr. Freeman take the last part of that question. The M21 is huge. It's like a black hole. I could possibly find it in like 30 seconds, but you could find it in the rating scheduler as well. Okay. So Dr. Freeman, I'm pretty sure you've done DBQs for sleep apnea before, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
On there, I know in the 38 CFR, it talks about other breathing devices or breathing assistant devices as well.
It does, and it says, if I remember correctly, without it in front of me, the DBQ asks if you have a breathing problem and do you use a breathing assisted device, and it gives an example, such as a CPAP. And we can, yes, a lot of people use CPAPs, but there is other breathing assisted devices, such as what I call it OSA. It's an oral sleep appliance. OSA. It's easy to remember because OSA is obstructive sleep apnea. So there's oral sleep appliances that do apply. If any kind of assistive device, it would be rated similar to a CPAP machine.
Thank you for that, Dr. Freeman. Thank you.
Yes,
and
sir.
You know, one thing that I tell veterans, whatever you're claiming, and if you don't have a private doctor complete a DBQ and Nexus statement, or is just going in for an increase, you should always go to the VA's website and look over that DBQ. So when you get to the CMP exam, you can have a conversation. I talked to so many vets tell me, oh, my CMP exam was 5 minutes. that lets me know you didn't ask any questions. You didn't look at that DBQ before you went in there, because some of these DBQs are 3 and 4 pages long. So there's no way that exam should be 5 minutes, you know. What is the longest exam that you done, Dr. Freeman, for when you were completing a DBQ with LHI, the 3 organizations, and even since then?
That's a good question. I think a lot of the musculoskeletal exams, if you're doing them correctly, using goniometry and measuring all ranges of motion, along with hands-on palpation and knowing where there's crepitus or there's pain on palpation, I think those pretty much take the longest. The joints that have the greatest range of motion, being the shoulder, has the greatest range of motion of any other joint. Second would be the hip. It has the same range of motion, except the shoulder has circumduction. The hip does have different planes of range of motion. And so those two would take a little bit longer, for instance, compared to the knee, which is just extension and flexion and extension. It's not as long. But those DBQs take a little bit longer than some of the other subjective, presumptive DBQs. I want to tell you one of the DBQs that takes, I think, very long time, besides the hands and the fingers, is aid and attendance. That DBQ it's supposed to take a long time. Yeah, that's a long DBQ. We don't get a lot of those. Thank goodness.
You know, it's now that aid and attendance form is only 2 pages. And I used to do training on those, Dr. Freeman, because it was always difficult for me to rate in the beginning. And a lot of veterans overthink that aid and attendance. One, on the form, and even the regulation, it states, and this is for any SMC, the conditions that you're stating, the conditions that the veteran is stating that they need aid and attendance for, one, they have to be service connected. They have to be service connected conditions. And there's some trick questions on there. One is in particular, does the veteran need nursing home care or something like that? Now, a lot of doctors will put no. But in that training, and even training from the VA, this is what they told us. The veteran can still be living at home as long as the person that providing care is providing the same care that they will be getting if they were in a nursing home. And then the doctor could check a yes. And I used to do training on that every month for veterans. But I think it's not hard to complete, but they just ask some really, I think, trick questions to try to trick the doctor up, you know. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a tricky one. I think that involves a lot of observations. You got to know if the veteran can, slurs when he speaks, or he has the physical capacity to care for himself, or if not, does his wife or caregiver have to do it? Would that suffice as he would get the same treatment in a nursing home? And there's just a lot of things to that. But anyway, getting back to the original question, I think musculoskeletal exams take a long time if it's done correctly.
Yeah. So Stephen says, can you talk a little bit about VA code sheet and how to acquire? So Stephen, I can tell you're not subscribed to my channel because I have a video on rating code sheets. And also, I think I talk about it in my book a little bit. But you would have to submit a FOIA request to the Department of Veterans Affairs, VBA, the same place where you would submit the claim. And in your on the CD, it would have the rating code sheet. Now, the next best thing that you can do to get some of the information that's on that code sheet is call 800-827-1000 and ask for a disability breakdown letter to include the diagnostic codes. 800-827-1000. What you're asking for is a disability breakdown letter to include the diagnostic codes. Also, before you hang up, Ask them to email it to you. If the rep does not want to email it to you, hang up, call back, get somebody else. They can email it, okay? If they choose to. Definitely going to give thumbs up to this channel. Has helped me so much. Way to go. Not a problem. And let's get some thumbs up for Dr. Freeman. I want to hear some thank yous for him coming on and help me answering some of these questions and sharing his knowledge. Sweet and Low 718. Haven't seen you in a couple of months. Welcome back. I just made 100% P&T last year. Congratulations. Everybody give Sweet and Low a thumbs up or a hand clap in the comment section. She has reached her goal. I was told to stop and never put in another claim. But I was going to get a Nexus letter for SMCK for MST. Could they reduce my rating they just gave me? Okay. I am actually going to do a video on this. I did a couple of videos on routine future examinations, static disability, and if you're 55 years old. So Sweet and Low and everybody else, hear me when I say this. When people on YouTube tell you you're 100% P&T and they're going to, if you come in for a claim, they're going to look at everything else, that is clickbait for you to watch that channel. As a rater, I've rated claims where several claims where veterans were 100%. They came in, filed a claim, some totally new, and they knew what they were doing, and I did not go back and look at everything. If raters did that, instead of having 1 million claims in the inventory, it'd probably be 2 or 3 million. You will never get any work done, okay? But I would say this, Sweet and Low, make sure you know what you are doing before you file a claim, because you're saying Nexus letter, SMCK for MST, okay? That I'm not going to say it doesn't make sense, but SMCK is loss of use of a creative organ, military sexual trauma. You see veterans claiming PTSD due to that. So it could be for maybe the same reason, but 2 different diagnostic codes, okay? So get with me. We can do a private Q&A with one of the members of my staff and explain that. So then you can make the decision at that time if you want to move forward. And if so, we can explain what your options are and what the VA requires per their regulations. Dwayne Jones, can the doctor view the entire claims file provided by the VA? Dr. Freeman answered that earlier, and his answer was yes. Okay. Chris, you can get the code sheet from, there you go. So Chris has been a long supporter. So he knows exactly probably what the way I was going to answer that question, and he answered it for me. Okay, another option is to call the hotline, ask for the disability breakdown. There it is. There it is. So Chris has been in several of my training classes, so I must have been saying the right thing or teaching the same thing. Should sleep apnea be primary with hypertension and rhinitis or secondary?
Okay, that's a good question.
What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Freeman?
Well, there's a lot of people with hypertension that don't have sleep apnea and vice versa. And so we now know that sleep apnea, which is, back in the day used to be when everybody claimed sleep apnea secondary to PTSD, the raters would come back and say, wait a minute, PTSD is a psychological issue, sleep apnea is a physical issue if it's obstructive. But we now know that there's some physical problems that can be psychosomatic, as well as you had mentioned rhinitis. We quite often have, if someone is service-connected for sinusitis, rhinitis, where does the sinus congestion drain when you get relief? Drains to the nose, but not just in the nose. Certainly you have a runny nose, but it drains to the back of your throat. You might know it as postnasal drip. And so if you have a chronic condition of anything called itis, it's an inflammatory condition. Chronic inflammation of the nasopharyngeal tissues can cause constriction of the pharynx, which is an obstructive related problem. And therefore, the sleep apnea, even if it's obstructive sleep apnea, can be and should be claimed as secondary to a chronic inflammatory, upper respiratory inflammatory condition, such as we quite often claim it and file it as secondary to chronic sinusitis / rhinitis. And I think that's a better approach. As far as hypertension, I think that is, there is a positive correlation, Dwayne, but in the VBA's eyes, you got to prove causation, not just correlation. And so it'll be, you have to have some very astute medical evidence.
Yeah. So a lot of people ask me these questions, and you got Dr. Freeman right here. He gave you his contact information. And also, we're going to put his contact information in the description section of this video so you can go back and look at it, and you can, contact him. And now, Dr. Freeman, you can do, you're equipped to do telehealth exams to complete the DBQs for certain conditions, correct?
Yes, sir. There's certain claims that can be done virtually outside of musculoskeletal claims, which must be done, in-house, because you have to measure degrees of range of motion via goniometry and lay hands on. But there's other claims that can be done virtually. I want to add one thing, Dwayne, if I may, to that last question about sleep apnea, which a lot of people are claiming as secondary to PTSD. And I hear some raters say, well, one's psychological, one's physical. I do want to make sure that veterans understand when they go through their sleep study, there's a sleep study architecture. There's certain things with the AHI, apnea-hypopnea index, that shows a breakdown of what is causing the apnea or hypopnea. Is it obstruction? And then there's other thing, it could be a central apnea or hypopnea. If they have central components to their sleep study architecture, that is actually neuropsychological. And so they can relate and be a causative factor of sleep apnea secondary to a neuropsychological insult.
Wow.
It depends on the sleep study architecture, Dwayne.
Everybody out there, we got 169 people. Dr. Freeman just dropped a huge nugget, and I hope that you all caught it. That was a lot of good information. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Freeman, because people ask me these questions. I'm like, I don't know. I can read it, but I'm not the medical professional like yourself. So thank you for breaking it down that way. So you just heard Dr. Freeman say he can do telehealth examination. So if this is something you need, it's a person you want to contact. Stephen, thank you. Definitely appreciate the donation. And just for those of you that may be new here, all the revenue that I generate on YouTube, I put in a foundation I created, a nonprofit I created in my grandmother's name, to give scholarships to individuals in low-income communities, okay? Even though I want that Dodge Charger Hellcat, I talked to my neighbor about buying his new Tesla, not his new Tesla, but one of his Teslas that he had tricked out, electric car, but I don't use it for any of that. I put it back in the community, okay? Traveling Terry, how you doing? Traveling Terry's been a long subscribers. We actually met last year in person for the first time. He had been following me on YouTube, I think, about a year, 2 years. And we sat down and had lunch together, and got to meet him and his new wife, and really good person. So you be careful out there, Terry. You're probably driven to Hawaii or something like that, even though you can't drive over water. But if anybody could find a way to do it, it'll be Terry. All right, Mr. King, I went to CMP exam for sleep disturbances. 2 weeks later, I get a response, need for clarification. I got a second email from QTC, but they never contacted me. How should I proceed? Dr. Freeman, what I've been hearing people, and I don't know if you could possibly share some light on this, but I've been hearing probably the last 6 months, some of the third-party organizations, the veteran will show up, do the exam, and then a couple of weeks later, they'll call them back in. and sometimes they would meet with a different doctor, and people ask me, did I see that when I was at the VA? Rarely did the vet would have to show up. We would send an addendum request. Do you remember getting any addendum requests for clarifications for any DBQs that you completed?
Yes, sir, it did. Yes, sir.
So that Mr. King, that it could be that, maybe the doctor maybe missed something on the exam, and the VA is sending another 2507 addendum request back for some type of clarification. But definitely, hopefully you kept the information, the contact information for QTC, so you could call and just follow up with them. Did you want to add something to that, Dr. Freeman?
Well, I just, in my experience working with third-party administrators, there's just like there's some low-skilled level raters, they are actually low-skilled level, or less experienced, I should say, less experienced QA for these third-party administrators. And the QAUR, quality assurance utilization review. And so a lot of times when they're confused, or they can't read the doctor's writing, or they can't understand the terminology or the strategy that the doctor's doing, or the medical professional, then they'll send back for an addendum. Can you please explain this, or use certain terminology that's more consistent with the adjudications as opposed to your treatment terminology? And so, and then a lot of the medical health professionals will either respond or not. And if they don't, then what's the third party Q&A person supposed to do? Well, they got to get another healthcare professional. So they'll ask the veteran, would they mind attending another exam, because they don't have quite the information complete or necessary to file. And so it happens.
Were those individuals that were QAs, the quality assurance, were they medical professionals as well?
No, sir. And quite often, some of them, therein lies a problem, Dwayne. I didn't want to bring up, and I'm not here to bash all of those people, but quite often they're certainly not medical professionals, and they want to be medical professionals. I think everybody wants to be a doctor, okay? That's just me. But they want to be, so they'll actually argue with the healthcare professional. But then again, you got to keep this in mind, Dwayne. A lot of the healthcare professionals that are contracted, they're not all doctors. Some of them are mid-level providers, not to say anything against them, but it's not, they don't have the education and training from these third parties that is necessary. As you know, timing and rate and rank is important, right? And so you need that education and training to feel comfortable and confident in your role. And so some of those guys just, are not ready to be making these type of decisions. So
Right. But thank you for sharing that, Dr. Freeman. Josh, just found out my back pain and back pain claim in 2013 was denied. Examiner said hips were not connected when I didn't mention them. Just the pain was bilateral over them. Need a little bit more information on that, Josh. I don't know if that was a question or if you were just sharing that, but if you just found out you were denied back in 2013, that's a problem. Either they sent your rating to the wrong address, or so also vets, make sure when you call that 800 number, make sure you confirm your address. They got the correct address. When I first started rating, we had paper files. You can see mine back there in the corner. A lot of times, and when you have that human element and that mail comes in, and I worked at one of the largest regional offices in the country, and I think they said they average on a daily basis, I want to say 3,000-5,000 pieces of mail a day. And I want to say that department maybe had like 5 or 6 people. What are the chances that your information could be put in somebody else's file? That happens. And they used to do what it was called, they had these claims assistants, CAs, and they would do what is called a tub scrub. So they had these tubs with A, B, C, D, or some numbers. I think they had the initial, the like A through B or A through C or something. Then they had the numbers, like the last two digits of the social security number. So you could walk up and down this long wall and all these different tubs. And so whenever they would have overtime, they would do tub scrubs. And what they're doing, they're going through to make sure that information is in the correct position or in the correct location. If not, it could end up in the incorrect file. And I've seen it with the electronic claims file as well. So if you got a vet that's 100% permanent total and your information ends up in their electronic claims folder and that vet never files a claim, it's going to be very hard to find. Very hard to find. Okay, V Knight, it's helpful to include medical research studies along with, this is for you, Dr. Freeman, along with lay and buddy statements to your claim to help provide a nexus.
Absolutely, Dwayne. I tell you that the two most credible evidences is medical evidence and lay evidence. And so if you, along with your medical evidence, if you give a medical opinion, you should have some rationale for that opinion to justify that opinion. And part of that rationale is the research of your peer-reviewed medical journal. So it's not just your opinion, it's what your colleagues in your community in that medical specialty has noted in and is published in peer-reviewed journals. So absolutely, it's a positive thing to have that credible medical evidence.
Thank you for sharing.
And by the way, Dwayne, the veteran himself can go find the research.
You know, that's what I was going to ask. Is there, you know, for medical doctors, is there any websites that maybe the general public doesn't have access to that you may pay for a subscription monthly to go out and look for some of these studies?
There are those access points where you have to have a subscription, but there are so many free access points that get you to the same research or similar research that is used to justify a medical opinion for a nexus. So you can go to PubMed, you can just Google it, and it'll take you to different sources for a particular condition.
Okay. All right. So we got about 6 more minutes. We're going to keep going here. Cufflinks. Dwayne Kimball, and your medical board advice. Can your medical board evaluation be part of your medical history? Yes. If it's active duty, yes, it is part of your medical history. Simply Robbie Rob says, I'm a Gulf War vet, U.S. Army paratrooper, who I'm 90% with 10% each knee, 20% lumbar and thoracic spine degenerative disc disease, all service connected. Okay. Don't know if there's a question in there somewhere. Simply Rob. Does a claim file need to be used for an initial if I'm submitting a DBQ with it or just within the high level? Someone pointed out, I shared a reference, and this is a reference, not 38 CFR. And in this reference, and I've seen it before, but I just never talked about it. I don't know why. But it states, it has a paragraph. If the DBQ is completed by a private doctor, there's no need for review of the claims file. And I was totally shocked. When a vet pointed it out, and I read it, and I was like, wait a minute, I had to read it 2 or 3 times. Now, that is in a reference. The reference is not law. They do use that, but if the evidence is not reviewed, I'm afraid that a rater will see it and find the 38 CFR that will trump that M21 manual reference. So one thing I tell veterans, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Okay. So even though that's in a reference, be proactive, go overboard, or whatever you want to call it. If I had to have if I called Dr. Freeman and said, Dr. Freeman, I need you to complete a DBQ for me, I'm going to give him whatever information he needs out of that claim folder. So he could say he reviewed it because, they're gonna need the same access to the evidence that a VA CMP examiner will have access to. And I think that would help for a better, to help you to complete a better rationale and provide a positive opinion if you're looking at all the information in all the evidence in its entirety, correct? I know we talked about that a little bit earlier.
Right. I think that when you work in the CMP examiner through a third-party administrator, you have access via their electronic claims folder, and you can do search words to get certain things. If in a private medical examiner with DBQs, they don't want to see everything and anything you got from kin to can't. They actually would want you to separate or screen out certain things that you're contending to claim. And so if your contentions are migraines, I don't want to see everything having to do with your plantar fasciitis unless that's what we're claiming. So we ask them to do their own search, with the private DBQ, because I can't go through. Look at your file back there, Dwayne. I can't go through all that entire
Right.
file for every veteran that comes to see me. We just wouldn't have the time. Yeah.
That's why I tell veterans, get educated on the process, understand it, and understand what you're asking a doctor to do. If you got 1,000, if your claim folder is 1,000 pages, just don't send a link to the doctor and say, here, you go through all this. Go through there, do your due diligence, go through there and get, ask the doc, say, hey, doc, especially Dr. Freeman, because he's familiar with this process. What are some of the things that you need? Oh, you're claiming this secondary. I need that rating decision or that code sheet, or I'll need this, I'll need that. And then you go through those 1,000 pages and get that information. Because a lot of vets, they'll be like, oh, well, I'm paying for you to do this. Come on now.
Right.
Because if you're charged by the hour, then that's a whole different story. You know what I mean? So now, because I had someone say, hey, I go through my claims folder and tell me what's missing. How many pages is it? 6,000 pages. Well, I'm locked up all week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And what am I looking for? And it's going to be by the hour. Opposed to saying, hey, I believe there's an error, a CUE, and the effective date should go back 10 years. Here are all my rating decisions. That's a little bit different. You go to the claims file and you pull out those rating decisions and possibly, the claim form, the 526EZ, and then we can start to review there. So that instead of, 4 hours of work, it could just be, 16 hours of work, it could just be 4 hours of work.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. We got less than a minute. United States Army veteran. I guess this is where process in order it is received happens, where they cop out just so they can delay and develop to deny. Thanks for the input. I'm suspecting this is the case for me too. I want everybody to hear me when I say this. Since I've been going from the VA and, I'm still in this process, so to speak, because I'm working with veterans, talking with veterans, looking at information, twisted. It is the training. I just, in my wholehearted opinion, it is the training to include management, because you have to not only be a manager, you have to be a leader. Leader is someone that inspires, encourages, motivates. Managers, hey, you managing the process. At 3:00, option A needs to be over here. Option B, you manage the process. And it could be both. So the VA not only needs to show up their training with their VA employees that are doing the work, but their managers as well. And it reflects in the work that is being completed. When I was, and we're going to wrap it up here, but I'm going to tell this story. And I don't think I ever told this story online before, Dr. Freeman. I can remember the VA having a contest saying whichever team rates more cases, they'll get a party. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. So you want us to get us as an incentive to rate more cases? Well, we all know when you speed you're more apt to maybe get a ticket or get into an accident. VA claims, you're more apt to commit an error and miss some information. And I didn't care about a party. I cared about making sure the work that I was completing was correct because it was going to affect that vet and that vet's family for the rest of their lives. Okay. So whenever that happened, I was just like, I'm still going to work at my pace as long as I'm meeting my quota. So we're going to wrap it up with, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Freeman. I'm sorry.
That's what we were talking about earlier, Dwayne, when we were talking about quality over quantity. You exhibit that same quality.
Exactly. Well, you know what, Dr. Freeman, if you got a couple more minutes, I see your name popped up here. Somebody got some questions for you. Hold on.
I do.
Get rated. No need to exam. I don't know if Dr. Freeman can ask this. It's going to depend. DBQ and Nexus enough to get rated. No need to attend CMP exam.
So that's going back to what you and I were talking about earlier, Dwayne, about that 38 CFR 3.326 subparts B and C.
Mm-hmm.
And it says in the CFR, which is the executive branch to make these laws actionable. I think the laws come from the Congress, USC, something, and it states that, the federal government through the CFRs can make these recommendations into standards. And it does say that from a private physician, if you have competent medical evidence that is actionable and sufficient to rate a case, then there's no need for further CMP exams to judge as is. And that's what we're trying to get done. But like we said before, we're running up against a roadblock because of the lack of training of these raters.
Right. Exactly. So everyone, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Sorry if we didn't get to all of your questions. Maybe Dr. Freeman will come back, or even maybe we might do a Zoom call and just have about 10 or 15 people. But if we do that, come with the questions, for Dr. Freeman. He has a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge in this area, and I think it would definitely be beneficial. So before we wrap up, Dr. Freeman, can you share your contact information once again for everybody?
Sure. Thank you, Dwayne. My website is accessmed.com, spelled AXX as in X-ray, ESS as in Sierra, MED as in medical, accessmed.com. My office number is area code 337-484-1178. And my email is info at accessmed.com.
One of my long supporters here, Annette Baker, says, is Dr. Freeman doing Nexus DBQs privately? Can we get his information? He just gave the information. Also, she asked, does he perform them over VVC, which I've never heard of that. So
virtual
Annette,
video conferencing,
okay.
video conferencing. And it depends, Annette, on which the claim. If it's other than musculoskeletal, we should be able to take care of business.
Right. Okay. All right. So I'll apologize to everyone if we didn't get to your questions. We rarely do, just because we got 159, 160 people in here tonight, and a lot of questions, a lot. But I want to give some shout out. George Reed, give a donation. I'm definitely going to answer this question for you. If I do an intent to file for tinnitus, would I get grandfather in under the old guidelines, and how do I speed up getting my service records? Okay, so real quick, they haven't come out and implemented that. It removed tinnitus from the 38 CFR. And we don't know what the VA is going to do. Normally in the past, what they'll say, as of this date. So if they say as of June 1st, tinnitus has to be combined with hearing loss and the 10% is removed. If you have that claim in now, then yes, you grandfathered in. No one can say it. I can't say it. And even if I was still at the VA, I couldn't say it because they haven't come down with that ruling. And normally in the past, when I rated, if they changed something, they would say, as of this date, they would tell you that date. So when you're rating that particular condition, you'll know, okay, I have to look at this effective date differently. Okay. So one thing that I did want to mention that I did mention earlier, I am going to give a training that I gave last July. A lot of you attended it. It was a 4-day, 1-hour training. I'm doing it again the second week of May. Make sure you follow me on YouTube, maybe LinkedIn. You know my website, www.kmd89.com. We're going to start sending out information, and the seats are limited. That event, we had 532 people register. We're not having that many. Okay. I'm making it limited, but I am going to give that training the second month of every quarter. So I'm going to do it 4 times this year. The first one is going to be the second week of April. It's going to be 1 hour each night. So make sure you follow me so you can find out those dates. Got a couple more. Darren, hi, Dwayne. I'm sure you've answered this already, but I need to get a Nexus letter. Do you have any recommendations? Mr. Jones, you're looking at one. Yes, I do. You're looking at one. Okay. Dr. Freeman just gave his information. All right. Chris, thanks, Dr. Freeman, for answering my question about whether or not examiners can see a veteran's rating. Will very likely reach out to you, utilize your services in the future. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. All right. All right. So thanks, everyone. Definitely appreciate you showing up. Let's give a round of applause for Dr. Freeman. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Thank you for attending tonight. Thank you for what you're doing for veterans. I think it's a service. You're providing a service that is much needed. So everyone, thank you. Be safe. And don't forget to follow me to get more information on that upcoming training. Take care, everyone.